time to fight. It's time to fight. If you down to fight, then let's start the strike.
Welcome to Shut It Down, the Amazon Teamsters podcast. I'm your host, Randy Corrigan, director of the Amazon division at the International Brotherhood of Teamsters. Big news out of New York. Another delivery station. Workers have become Teamsters. More than 200 plus drivers have jumped into the fray and said, hey, I've had enough of your exploitive business model, and we're putting our foot down. And guess what? This show, you're going to hear right from some of those workers. You're going to hear an incredible story of how these drivers rallied around one that got terminated. An incredible journey of how the employer tries to drive fear into workers by firing somebody. And the opposite happens. It flips the script where the workers rally around this worker and say, you know what? I don't want that to happen to me or anybody else. And we need to organize. We need to put our foot down. Matt and Chris tell the story on what motivated them to get involved. Also, very powerful message on what connected them to the labor movement, their family history or their journey through life and how they were able to connect to other workers, their coworkers, and those issues that they were facing and how they believed that building a union and being part of the Teamster family here at this location was going to help them fix those issues on behalf of those coworkers. Collective action, worker power at its best form. Keep in mind, this is peak season and we want to hear from you. Amazon Teamsters at Gmail. We need you to send us in information so that we can identify either what you're facing, what you want to talk about, or in general, what are the things you'd like to see on a show? Or quite frankly, maybe you want to complain about what's going on or you just want to vent. Once again, it's peak season. Lots of hard work, lots of volume. And you know what? We want to hear from you. Amazon Teamsters at Gmail. Go ahead and tune in and listen to this amazing show. Here we are with some DPK1 drivers. This morning, just fresh off this morning, you guys just took control of your workplace. We are, everybody in the country is so proud of what you've done. And I'm sure you guys are flying high right now based on what you just experienced. Why don't the two of you introduce yourself real quick and we'll kind of get in the nuts and bolts of what's going on. And we'll tell the story and the journey of not only what happened this morning, but what's happened over the last few months. Christian, you first.
Good evening, guys. My name is Christian Trimboli, born and raised in Queens, and I've been delivering for Amazon for about 1.5 years now.
I'm Matt Multari. I've been delivering for Amazon for about 1 year and a month now, and I'm from Yonkers, but I'm living in Queens now.
Christian and Matt, you guys are drivers for Amazon. I know that they claim you're not Amazon drivers. We don't have to have that discussion. There's actually a whole nother podcast that talks about this subject, but clearly Amazon's in control of the outcome of almost every single day as well as almost every single move. But short of that, today you guys did something. Matt, do you want to lead off by talking about what you did just this morning?
Well, just this morning, we marched on our warehouse with a group of drivers. I could walk you through the whole thing, but just Spark Notes version is we got a group of drivers together after we'd loaded out our vans. It was a really close call because actually my van was like the first van in the loading area. So it would be the first to leave. And as I was walking over to join the other guys who were marching, they said, all right, all vans leave. And at that point, it was like, all right, we're doing it. Everybody started honking, like the managers were yelling, but we did it anyway. We went in there, we marched with a group of guys. We gave speeches to the management about why we're doing this, why we need a union. We delivered our demand for recognition and also a petition to get Chris's job back, because that's been an issue that we've been able to galvanize support around since Chris was unjustly terminated the day before Thanksgiving. We called them out on that. We put them on blast. We marched right back out and went to work.
This is something that thousands of other workers, drivers have done throughout the country. Let's walk through, you just said, you're like, I can give you the Spark version or the long detailed version. How did it feel to you know that you were going to, for the first time, actually put them on notice and hold this big corporation accountable. What was that feeling like to you on the journey into those steps, right just before you're calling their attention?
I think I described it to you, Chris, like this. It's like it felt like one long flying sidekick. It's like in martial arts, it's like you run at somebody and you do like a sidekick. It felt like that, but like one that took the whole morning. Because it's like I didn't even know if I was going to be on shift at the right time as everybody else. I had to go into work, ask them for a morning shift, and they got somebody who called out, so they put me in. And it's like just the stars kind of had to align because at our station, all the shifts are staggered, and it's staggered across different DSPs, different like contractors. So, and we were going public with 2 contractors. So we were trying to make that align, make the shifts align. Just got lucky, got put on, was confident. And it was kind of terrifying at first because it was like, I don't know if this is going to happen. Like the thing that I was most afraid of was like not getting the shift and then having all the marches be staggered, not unified, or doing it and not having people going with us. It also felt exhilarating. And I felt like coming up to it, it was both a feeling of like anxiety, but also like, let's go. We're on. It's time to fight now. Getting pumped up and ready to go. And I feel like that was obviously the more prevalent emotion.
Chris, why don't you describe what's going on?
Yeah, I wanted to jump in. So unfortunately, being that I was fired before we got to, march on the boss, I wasn't able to be there. But, I was right outside the warehouse. Like, I see them loading up their vans. I watched them walk inside, and the energy is palpable. Like, because I've been telling a lot of my family and friends, like, trying to describe what a march on the boss is. And I always say like the best way to describe it is like us standing up to our bully. It's like you should have seen how happy and excited the drivers were. Like all of them are honking their van horns as they're leaving. Because it's like yeah, we did it. We're finally standing up to our bully, and that feels great. Like it's such a euphoric feeling.
And how does it feel to have everybody rally around you like that? How does it feel knowing that workers over this last couple weeks have really, specifically the last week and a half, right, have really stepped up and stepped out and said, we don't like what happened to him, and therefore we're going to do something about it because that could be us someday, and drawing that line in the sand. What's it like for you to be that rally cry? In other words, for workers to say, I'm stepping out, and regardless of that fear, we're going to flip it on its head, and we're going to do the right thing because you're not going to control us with fear. How's that feel, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many emotions. So for one, I'm filled with like a lot of gratitude, and it's nice to know that I've also had an impact on others. I think that's like something that like.
Yeah, you're well respected. I heard very quickly after this situation happened with you specifically how much everybody respected your work ethic, how hard you worked. And this wasn't a question over whether or not you did your job. And quite frankly, that's one of the things people rallied around is the fact that, employers cannot have this control over us. The only way we're going to be able to put a line in the sand is for us to have a union contract and for us to have a say so and for us to have, for us to have input into making sure that they don't just have complete control over what's going on. That has to be just an incredible feeling when you know that everybody respects you like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like even the managers did. Like, it's hard to deny. I mean, I'm not trying to brag, but like I do try to take pride in my work, what I do. Like, I think the stigma that's associated with being an Amazon driver needs to end. Like I should be allowed to take pride in my work. We're all like working men and women. But yeah, like drivers everywhere, they realize like, man, if they're just arbitrarily firing people, like none of us are safe. Like no matter how hard we work. And that really did become like a rallying cry for so many people because like it just says so much about Amazon. Like Amazon just seems to fire people at their convenience. They don't have any, they're not concerned with our lives and the families that we're trying to raise or the bills we have to pay.
Yeah, Matt, what's it like to be at the center of that storm where that happens and then you all rally around one another and you're knocking on that door, you're making that contact with that worker saying, yeah, man, that could happen to me one day. I want to put an end to this. What's that like to be doing something that's a bigger purpose than just for yourself individually? It's actually in a lot of ways more for others, right?
Yeah, I feel like that's what has driven me through this. And it's the reason why this feels fulfilling. I feel like when stuff happens to me on the job or I go through nonsense, I can persevere, but I'm not going to get that pissed off about it. When I got the phone call from you, Chris, on Thanksgiving morning, I was absolutely livid. Like, you remember how angry I was, and y'all had to kind of calm me down, because I'm like, if somebody comes for me, that's one thing. I'm not really afraid about people coming for me. I know I can handle it. I know I'm tough. If somebody comes for my people, then I'm going to go off on them, and nothing is going to stop like me from making sure that they feel that. And I feel like in terms of seeing other people react that way, we had several people who, I remember one guy who, like, we were friends with from like day one. And he said, he was like, I didn't know that I was going to march just to demand union recognition. But now that it's about Chris and that they did Chris dirty like that, I'm definitely going to march, because you can't just mess with good people like that. You can't just take away people's freedoms. You can't just abuse decent people who are actually conscientious about their jobs. And Chris, everybody knew you were one of the most conscientious people in that company. You actually were meticulous about the job. You cared about everything. It's not like you were just, being like negligent, which happens sometimes, but like you were on your stuff. And the fact that they targeted you because you cared about other people and you were trying to stand up for them, like, yeah, that impulse to look out for you and to look out for coworkers and seeing the suffering that people are going through and wanting to put an end to it, that's the reason why I want to do this.
The most powerful movements in America, history has shown us over and over again that the most effective and powerful movements have always been on behalf of others. Like we do, as much as the media and, let's say, social media wants to tell us that we're very isolated and we don't care for another. Human beings, it's actually not true. We're very communal. Our history goes back a very long way where we've always tried to help one another out. We always try to make sure that the next person gets that helping hand. It's actually a byproduct of corporate America's greed to try to divide us so that we only care about ourselves. And when you tap into this, that both of you are describing right now, how incredible it is to see people do things to help one another. It's actually very natural for us. I know it's not advertised that way, but it really is. When you really think about it, you just described it. If something were to happen to you as an individual, you weren't going to be as upset because you feel like, I can take care of it, I can handle it. But it happened to somebody else. And now you're like, no, I'm really upset about that. I want to do something about it. And that's what having a union contract and having a collective bargaining agreement is. It's not just about myself selfishly. Yeah, it's nice to be taken care of too, but it's also making sure that the person next to me is taken care of, and the person after me. After I leave this job, I want to make sure that the person next has an even better situation than I did, that I made it better for the next person, that maybe I was able to teach the organization something to make it easier on that individual. And it's okay that they had it better, not worse. Thank you both for pointing this very important thing out, because unfortunately, corporate America's greed wants us all to be isolated, think no one cares, and they want us to feel defeated. They want us to feel as if we can't conquer these circumstances and situations because they want to exploit that emotion. You conquered it, you flipped it on its head, and you guys took it on like nobody's business. It's incredible. And I'm hearing it right here. We're hearing you walked the walk. You went through the circumstances and you were able to turn what could be arguably a very negative situation into management freaking out. Actually, them going, what do we do? You're establishing control. What you did is you got management, because even though management did this to try to elicit fear, guess who the one that's afraid now, right? Isn't that right, Matt, Chris?
Yeah, Matt was telling me earlier that the managers' mouths were like agape. They're like, just in shock, wide-eyed. They weren't sure what to do. Totally caught them off guard. I think so. Yeah, I want to extend a little bit on what you said just now, because through all of this, all this time that we've been building this, especially these last few weeks, having faith in like one another, in ourselves and in our coworkers, and like, the people that we're working with to get this, like to achieve this, like, there have been a lot of obstacles, like, and I've never experienced this, like anything like this in my life. Obviously, like not many people do, but there's a giant, like Amazon is a corporate conglomerate. Like they are massive. Their power is immense. The influence they have can't be,
underestimated.
Yeah, thank you. But in all that, like we were able to persevere, and it's because we had faith in one another, and we had each other's backs. It was never about us. Like we were never just looking at ourselves. In fact, like there was a point where I had forgotten what my own issues were, because all I was thinking about what other people wanted, how they wanted their voices to be represented.
That's what collective action is you listen to other people, you take their ideas, you kind of put them together in a bucket and you say, hey, all these things collectively, all these things, they're not just one person making one person feel good, making one person feel their needs. It's about how it's going to help every single one of us in a collective fashion. Well, you guys have the power. And I think that's the hardest thing for workers to start to recognize, and obviously you just recognized it this last few days, right? Is workers in America are in complete control. It's whether or not you exercise it like you did today. If they just exercise their control collectively, guess what? It's over. Employers don't have a choice but to concede to what your demands are.
One thing I was thinking of before, I feel like a lot of what happens in, like mainstream establishment, whatever you want to call it, America, at our jobs, even in schools, like is making people forget where they come from, making people forget their roots. It's like an annihilation of the past. And when you cause that kind of amnesia and you make people forget anything beyond just their immediate present, you also annihilate their future. You annihilate them planning for, future generations, caring, thinking, believing that there can actually be a future. Because how can there be a future if they don't come from anywhere and they're just living for right now? I've seen that be the biggest weapon used against working people at our workplace. Getting people just to think about, oh, we give you a bacon, egg, and cheese now, so you should be happy. Yeah. Like, oh, we gave you like whatever, swag points, and now they revoke swag points anyway, so it doesn't even matter. So that it's like an arcade game thing. You get arcade money, Monopoly money, and then you could go buy an Xbox or whatever. It's like they try to bribe people and convince people, all you need is right now. Forget about everything else. And that lie prevents people from actually realizing that power that they have. But on the flip side, what's been most effective for us when we're having like an organizing conversation, when we're talking to someone and trying to flip them to actually act, whether it's to sign a card, it's to speak out, it's to march, whatever it is, the most effective story has been knowing where we come from, how that motivates us, and sharing with them and then inviting them to be vulnerable. Like, what do you care about? Do you have kids? Are you planning for the future? What's life going to look like in 5 or 10 years for your children if Amazon controls everything and they're just trying to turn everybody into a bunch of slaves? It's not going to look good. There aren't going to be a lot of opportunities for them. And when that clicks and they realize that and they're like, basically what we're doing right now is denial. And if we just flipped it, we could make such a better future for all of us. We are in control of doing that. When that really sinks in, I've seen that be the thing that makes people step up and take action. So I agree. I think that's the key.
And that actually is a great segue into a question I'd like to ask both of you is what was that flashpoint that got you involved? What's that flashpoint, that situation, that talk, that circumstance that you finally said, I'm doing this. I'm all in. This is what happened. I'm assuming it was an interaction with a worker, another worker, a scenario. At some point for listeners, what was that point that you just went, all right, you got me. I'm in. This makes sense. Because Matt, the way you just described, the way you just very eloquently and accurately described what organizing is all about and getting workers to understand, we need to know who you are and where you're going to be. And this is a holistic approach, not just some small individual moment in time on how I can just make a few bucks being a driver. Quite frankly, if you want to bribe me, Amazon, then pay me enough to buy a home. Then start me off in a job where I can afford to buy a home in the neighborhood I'm delivering it, right? If you want to bribe, if you want to get into that space, don't give me some egg McMuffin or, some peanuts over here. Why don't you step up to the plate and do something real? Because you're clearly making a grip of cash and you're not sharing the wealth with everybody. Matt, let's start with you first. What was that moment, that flashpoint that got you involved to help your coworkers?
I'm not sure exactly what moment, but I just think back to seeing coworkers in their 60s who they can't afford rent. So either they have a pension or they have a second job, but it's not able to cover all their bills, and 50s and 60s, and they're still basically forced to work here. And they're frustrated. They're getting injuries, knee injuries, back injuries. They just have to put up with it because they're not getting sick days. And I just thought of when I saw that happening around me, I just thought of my dad, and he was a firefighter, and he had a very close group of coworker friends who've been friends throughout his life. And I was just thinking because of that stability, that was the reason he could come to baseball games when I was growing up. That's the reason why he's retired now. And I don't have to worry about his health because he has benefits. And, when he gets older.
And he has benefits in retirement because of his union, right?
Exactly. So, but these people around me, I see them and I'm like, they're not like that. And I think of my grandfather. There's some people here who remind me a lot of my grandfather who worked so damn hard. He was born in the Soviet Union in the 30s. And they survived a famine. They went to Iran. They were a population of mountain tribe warriors, Assyrians who fled genocide and all of these trials and hardships they faced, facing death, facing starvation, facing being treated like second-class citizens, to come here to work, to, have a better life. When I see some of these coworkers, I see my grandfather here just kind of suffering and going through it and putting his head down. And I'm like, I can't bear this. When I see this, I'm like, this is just too much disrespect. So for me, it was just feeling like people who reminded me of people I admired, people who fought and risked life and limb for a taste of freedom, basically being disrespected and treated like garbage that you can just use up and toss to the side. And I'm like, I can't take that anymore. I got to do something about this.
Powerful story. Wow. That is an incredible way to describe connecting your past, your family, the moment you're in, and connecting the dots and recognizing how you don't want to see people get exploited like others. Chris, what was that moment for you?
I think I'm going to take a different approach with my answer here. Because Matt was someone who we were friends for a while, and he was trying to get me involved for a few months. And, I'd always supported, but I think I was, not to have excuses, but
more on the edge, off on the edge, right?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I supported it, but I was just in a place in my life where I just felt like I don't want to put I want to commit, but I'm going to commit all the way. So it's all or nothing for me, I guess. Mm-hmm. So I decided to just take myself out of it. But there was this one spring afternoon after a shift where Matt was like, "Come to this barbecue." And I was like, you know what? Screw it. Sure, let's do it. There's going to be free food there. I love to meet people. What do I have to lose? So I went, and then I saw there was a lot of people who were really passionate about this. And I was like, wow, this is actually impressive, it changed the way I thought about what I wanted for myself, because I think at the time, and I still kind of feel this way, I was telling Matt about this on the phone actually earlier this day. Mm-hmm. I have a degree that I don't know what to do with. I don't know which direction I want to take in my life right now, and I've ended up here at Amazon, and it's what is my purpose? What is my calling? And, I figured I think this is an opportunity for me, this could be something that's actually for me, I was maybe this is an opportunity to be a leader. And I feel the way people think about leadership is wrong. Sometimes people think about leadership like, oh, like, I'm going to climb the ladder and like be a manager or something like that. But for me, it feels like I want to be able to like enable others, like lift others up.
Teach them. That's right.
Yeah.
That's leadership. Leadership isn't a title. There's some leadership that's title, but leadership is your actions.
Yeah.
It's what you do, man. Chris, you are describing this great. This is beautiful. I'm sorry to interrupt you. I just had to jump in there. Very, very good. Keep on going.
Thanks, Randy. I appreciate that. Yeah. So, this is something I believe in. I'm going to fight for it, and I want to see it through. Like I want to live by my values. I'm not going to let. So yeah, honestly, that pretty much sums it up.
Teaching people and leading people into a space where they can better their lives. There's no greater, calling and purpose, at least from my perspective. It's obviously something attracted to me. It was attracted to me, many, many years. It's why I fell in love with the labor movement, so many decades ago. Was I felt the same way. If I can get into that space, help out, help others, lend something, learn something along the way, and move something to a much better space. I can now look back over that time period and see tens of thousands of workers that are in clearly a much better space as a result of us helping each other, learning from each other, working together, and holding a corporation accountable. So I want to ask the next thing, which is, you guys are the second New York City delivery station, which have become Teamsters. And, you talk about you're starting to build regional power here, right? You're really building it out where you're inspiring each other. Yeah, there are challenges. There's some things where people are like, oh, what about this? What about that? The reality is you guys keep plugging away. You keep building out this power. What does that feel like? In addition to this, like I got to add this, elected officials paid so much attention to what you all workers, just like you did last year with that strike and walking off the job, that elected officials are now on the verge of passing something in New York City, which is the Delivery Protection Act for drivers and workers just like you. So in other words, these really important elected officials that sit on a city council are inspired to put policy in place because of something you just described, Chris and Matt. Chris, you just described, like I didn't know my calling. I haven't been able to use my degree yet, or I felt like I've been able to use it right. Matt, you touched into the exploitation of workers and people in your family, and how you have this situation where, because of what workers just like you did in New York City, you're now connected to it, and you get to see that they've stepped up to the plate and they're going to be passing the Delivery Protection Act. What's it like to deliver regional power like that? One, whereas drivers, you're taking control. And two, you're seeing elected officials step up to the plate. What's that like?
When I would approach an organizing conversation with a coworker, often I would get excited about the Delivery Protection Act and bring it up as showing that power that we have, as showing that we can actually change the law, and the excuses that Amazon often uses of why we can't unionize, why we can't organize, that we're actually third-party contractors. The strike pushed the city to make a bill that gets rid of the DSPs and has us directly employed. Right. So that's not an excuse anymore. And right now we just went public. So if Adrian Adams is watching this, let's go. Let's make this thing happen. We need to get it done ASAP. And I feel like part of why I was excited about this is like, we could be the straw that breaks the camel's back in getting legislation passed to fix these problems. It's not about waiting for the government to do things for us. It's about we, the people, from the ground up, moving the government to do the things that we need.
This has been a perfect example of it. Like, you guys are living it. You're right in the center of what you just said, the government responding to your needs and actually doing it. Not only did you participate in making it happen, you're along the way with the resolution, and the impact of you building that regional power, building that ability and participating in policy that's going to make sure other drivers like you are more protected.
Yeah. It's empowering, to sum up in a word. I think that, like, especially in my generation, that there's a lot of like apathy, like people feel like, it's just like, what's the point?
Yeah. How do you fight it? Right. Whatever. Right.
Yeah, exactly. And like I said before, like, we're up against like giants, and we still were able to overcome. And I am that much more like confident that this bill is going to pass because of what we were able to do, and it only started with like a few people, like there was just a couple of us, and we were like, we're making connections, we're building relationships, trust. And here we are, like, however many months later.
We see the analytics. It's not just a few people. It's millions are following you. Millions of people are watching what you're doing and going, hey, man, I shouldn't give up. I should do it too. Like they just need to see by example. And I think that this really flows well into the last question, which is what message would you like to send to other drivers listening in or other workers listening in?
I think a lot of people on this job feel in the dark. They don't give us a lot of opportunity to talk to one another. They're never really sure if they're good enough. It's a rat race at Amazon. But the reality is that there are so many people who feel the same way you do. Like you're going to feel disrespected, tired, exhausted, taken advantage of. And you're not the only one. You're not the only person who feels that way.
Two things. First of all, believe in yourself. And second of all, nothing is worth more than integrity. I want to share something I think I said to you, Chris, a while back when we were talking about the stigma around being an Amazon driver. I think the way that we flip that stigma on its head is by showing ourselves first and knowing deep within us that we are the front line right now. We are the front line for working people in America trying to fight for our future. This company is taking over everything. It's one of the biggest companies. It's like a monopoly. Everything that happens here has a ripple effect across the whole economy. So even though we might feel ashamed, even though we might feel like this is beyond our pay grade, beyond our paycheck, at the end of the day, what we do here sets the tone for the future across all jobs in this country. So be proud of that, own that, know that you have a duty and a responsibility to build a better future for all the kids who are going to grow up in 5 and 10 years in this country. And if you choose to, you can be that leader and have that impact through this job in a way that you couldn't anywhere else. So in that way, I think being an Amazon driver is pretty damn cool.
Way to sum it up, way to put it together. And I'd like to wrap it up by asking something very simple. You guys ready to shut it down?
I'm going to use my one swear word card now. Hell fucking yeah, I'm ready to shut it down. We already started shutting it down today. We're not going to stop, and they can't stop us. They're going to have to kill us if they're going to stop us.
That's right. That is a great short answer with some explanation points on it. And I promise you, we're not even going to edit that out. Great job. Great job. Hey, anything you want to close on? I'm going to wrap this up right now. Thanks for coming on, the two of you. Hey, man, I really got to point out the fact you hit some really meaningful points talking about your family history, in addition to talking about how your reasons for doing this weren't just self-gratifying, that a lot of this had to do with what was happening to others, other issues for other workers, your coworkers, and also for the future of workers and workers from a distance to you. And then the other point that you made at making sure that you step up and rise to the occasion to make sure that the Delivery Protection Act passes as well. In other words, you feel that sense of responsibility to your coworkers, and it really came out. Is there anything either one of you want to close on before we wrap this up?
I think each of us need to find the reason why we're a fighter. And I shared about my family history. I was told all growing up the stories of my family being like warriors in, the mountains of Iraq and everything, and just, surviving a genocide and having each other's back, community being the only thing that got them through, just being very determined, we are going to make it and we are going to fight off all odds. And I think I've seen what impact that has, what impact that mentality has for workers in America. I would point to the history of what worker power can actually get done. There have been general strikes in the United States where workers have shut down entire cities. in Italy, like 2 months ago, there was a general strike where over 2 million workers got out on the streets in order to enforce an arms embargo in solidarity with the Palestinian people. If we want to, we can shut down New York City.
That is correct.
Be very clear about that. You just got to find the fighter in you and then go to another person and pass that fire on to them so they remember, because it's already in you. You just got to remember it. That's what I'd say.
Very good, Matt. Don't forget Teamster.org. You can tap into all this stuff on Teamster.org. Chris.
I don't know. Stay educated, I guess. Like people everywhere are suffering, right? And it's easy to just kind of remove yourself like from this reality, like try not to make these hard decisions, like signing a card. But, it's important that we do so, right? Because it impacts others. It's going to have a lasting impact on, like he said, like generations to come, So I think it's important that we all play our part.
Yeah, you heard it here. And I just want to say my final words are this. What defines worker power is taking these examples you just spelled out. And let's just game this out just real quick. The next time or at some point, we're going to see workers get to this point that I'm about to describe. Amazon fires somebody. Workers walk off the job and withhold their labor. Immediately after that, literally minutes after that, and you don't go back to work until that individual goes back to work. I've seen workers do that. I've witnessed it. I'm watching you all build towards it, and you're getting there. Shut it down. The Amazon Teamsters Podcast.
If you down to fight, then let's start the strike. Corporate greed is disgusting. Instead of us, they rather pay for union busting. Somebody said the working man a sucker. They took the stand and ran like a high jumper. Teamsters Local 804, we not having that. We gon' stand here and fight for fair contract. Fair wages on the table.